In this lesson, we're going to learn how to edit non-raw images. So in the last section, we learned how to edit files like the CR2 files that come from raw images from a Canon DSLR or another professional type camera. Now we're going to learn how to edit images like JPEG or PNG images that you might have shot with your camera, your point and shoot camera, your DSLR, your smartphone, or you found online and you want to edit. To open up a JPEG image, just right click and choose Open with Photoshop CC. That will bring it open as a background file. The first thing we want to do is make sure that this is not the background file or background layer. So just double click it and rename it. So I open up the moth image, and now when I rename it and press return, I can now edit this image. I can resize it. I can do all sorts of things with it. In this lesson, I'm just going to go over some of the basic photo editing adjustments that you would typically make for any photo. And when you have a layer selected or an image selected, you can find them up in the Image Adjustments drop-down menu. So the first few have to do with exposure and contrast. There are different ways to edit exposure and contrast, but if we just select the brightness and contrast option, you can see this brings up two sliders for brightness and contrast. Increase the brightness slider, it brightens the image. Decrease it, it darkens it. Contrast, sliding it to the right, adds more contrast, makes the darks darker and the brights brighter, and decreasing it makes the image more flat. You can uncheck the preview button to make sure you can see the before and after. And then when you're happy with your adjustments, click OK. I'm going to just click cancel, and then go back to adjustments and levels. Levels is a different type of editing exposure. We have this histogram right here that represents the exposure of our photo. Darks on the left, highlights on the right. We can click these little pentagon shapes right here at the bottom of this graph and slide to the right or left. If we take this one on the left and drag it to the right, it makes the image darker. What's happening is I'm making the darks darker. If I take this one on the right and bring it into the left, it's making the brights brighter. And then this middle one, it changes the midtones. So the kind of the darks, but not the too dark blacks, and the lighter parts of the image. So I can make those darker by sliding to the right or lighter by sliding to the left. This slider down here at the bottom for output levels decreases the whites and increases the darks or the blacks of the image. So if I take this one on the right, it makes the whites, the very bright highlights, darker, and this one on the left makes the darks brighter. If I go all the way to the right, you can see it makes the image white. And just like we learned in a previous lesson with the tone curve, you have RGB, red, green, and blue options for the channel. So we can choose just the red channel and edit just the reds of this image. I'm going to choose cancel and go back to Image Adjustments, Curves. This is the same as the curve tool that we learned in the camera raw settings. We can click right here in the graph and create a S-curve to add more contrast, or we can do the opposite of an S-curve to make it more of a flat image. You have the RGB, red, green, and blue channels. And you can choose what to show in this graph. To hide the histogram, you can show the baseline or not, which is the standard line that's already on there. You can click the points in the top rightmost corner or the bottom leftmost corner to edit the highlights, or to edit the whites or the blacks of this image. So dragging this up makes the image flatter. So if we have a really sort of small, short S-curve, the image is very flat. If we make it very tall, it's a very contrasted, saturated image. I'm going to click cancel just so we can see what the image looks like unedited. But to save any of those to the photo, you just click OK. A couple of the other options, and again, we have to make sure that we click the layer that we want to edit. Go to Image Adjustments. We have vibrance, hue, saturation, color balance, All of these work like the other edits in the Camera Raw. You open up hue saturation, you have hue, which adjusts the hue, basically how the colors appear of this photo. I have to put in 0 to get it back to normal. You can increase saturation. Lightness is overall brightness of the image. So there you can see there's lots of different ways to edit the same thing, basically, to make images brighter or darker, to add saturation or not. You also have a different vibrance. So vibrance is a smart way to add saturation. Vibrance will add saturation to greens and blues and not so much to yellows and reds. While saturation, it makes the colors more vibrant for all colors. You can quickly make your image black and white by going to Adjustments, Black and White, and it automatically makes it a black and white image. One cool tool to look at is the photo filter effect. This is sort of a filter that we add, and they have different presets. They have different warming filters, cooling filters, color filters, sepia filters. So say we add the sepia and we change this density, which is automatically set at 25, and we increase it to 100%. If I turn the preview on and off, it's kind of hard to see with this image because this image is already so brownish, reddish, but it makes it more of that sepia filter look. If we change this to underwater, it's going to make it look blue. Or you can choose color, click the color box, and find a specific color that you want to add that kind of tint to. The photo filter is a good way to add warmth or to cool down a photo that is too warm. So let me just show you what happens when I actually make an edit. So say I go here, I go to curves, I add a little S curve to this to make it a little bit more contrasty, then click OK. That edit is now baked into this layer. I can't go back and go to adjustments and then go to curves again and edit that curve. I can go back and add another S curve to it and make it more contrasted, but that's just multiplying the effect that I already added. We're going to learn in the next lesson how to edit in a non-destructive way, because now if I go to image, adjustments, and say I want to make this a little bit cooler, I go to photo filter, I pick one of these cooling filters, maybe let's go for 82. Yeah, I like 82 a lot. And then click OK. Now that's burned into this photo. I can go back to my history and undo those things. I can go to the make layer option, and that gets rid of the curves and the photo filter that I just did. Or I can go back to the curves, but I can't adjust these individually anymore. We're going to learn how to do that in the next lesson. But I think this was a good way just to see what the different options are for editing photos and quickly editing photos using these adjustments under the image menu.